The first signal arrived as a whisper inside the deep space listening array orbiting Earth's moon. It wasn't loud, and it wasn't hostile. It was precise. Too precise to be accidental. A mathematical cadence unfolded across the monitors, elegant and patient, like someone knocking on a door and waiting to be invited in. Dr. Elias Rowan was the one who noticed it. Elias had spent most of his life listening to the universe and hearing nothing but static. He was a xenolinguist, trained to search for meaning in chaos, patterns in noise. When the signal appeared, he felt the quiet certainty that comes only once or twice in a lifetime. This was real. Within hours, the message was decoded enough to reveal its intent. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a greeting in the traditional sense.
It was a request.
High above a distant blue-white star, on a world called Lyran, Princess Seraphel stood before the crystalline council chamber, her hands folded behind her back. Light refracted through the translucent walls, casting slow-moving rainbows across the polished floor. At the far end of the chamber sat Queen Lyris, her mother, ancient, composed, and powerful beyond measure. Seraphel's heart raced, though her posture never betrayed it. "You are certain," the queen said, her voice calm but weighted with gravity. "Of all the minds across the spiral arms, you have chosen a human." "Yes, mother," Seraphel replied. "I must have him." A ripple moved through the council. Elders exchanging glances, their bioluminescent markings pulsing faintly. Humans were young as a species, impulsive, fragile. They were known more for potential than accomplishment. Queen Lyris studied her daughter closely.
"You speak not of conquest."
"Not of study. You speak of him as one speaks of necessity." Seraphel lifted her gaze.
"He is a bridge."
"Without him, what comes cannot hold." On Earth, Elias barely slept after the signal's confirmation. Governments intervened quickly, but it was Elias they wanted. His mind had unraveled the alien syntax faster than any machine. When the second transmission arrived, it was unmistakably addressed to him alone. It contained star maps, biological safeguards, and an invitation. Against every instinct for self-preservation, Elias accepted. The journey to Lyran took place aboard a vessel grown, not built. It responded to thought, adjusted to emotion, and moved through folded space with unsettling grace. Elias felt less like a passenger and more like a guest. Seraphel met him at the edge of the royal platform. She was taller than him, her form elegant and unfamiliar, her eyes reflecting entire spectra of color. Yet when she spoke, her voice carried something deeply recognizable. Curiosity.
Hope. Fear.
"You came," she said. "I had to," Elias replied honestly. "Your message, it wasn't just information. It was a question." Seraphel inclined her head. "And you are the answer." Over the days that followed, Elias learned the truth of Lyran's crisis. The Empire had mastered energy, time dilation, and genetic harmony, but they had lost something essential. Innovation had stagnated. Their society prized balance so completely that it resisted change. They could maintain the universe, but not guide it forward. Humans, by contrast, were chaotic. They questioned everything. They failed often and adapted faster. Seraphel had studied thousands of species. Elias was not chosen at random. His work focused on emergent languages, how meaning evolved under pressure. He understood transition. "You don't want me," Elias said one evening as they stood overlooking the floating gardens. "You want what I represent." "I want both," Seraphel answered simply. "Representation without understanding is hollow." Her request to her mother had not been for ownership or control. It was for partnership, an unprecedented bond between civilizations, symbolized through shared leadership, shared learning, and trust embodied in two individuals. But the council resisted. To bind ourselves to a human is to invite disorder, one elder warned. To refuse is to accept decay, Seraphel countered. Stability without growth is a slow ending. Queen Meralis listened, weighing centuries of wisdom against the unmistakable clarity in her daughter's resolve. Lyris, for his part, struggled with the weight of it all. He was a scientist, not a symbol. Yet every conversation with Seraphel revealed how deeply their ways of thinking complemented each other. Where she sought harmony, he saw possibility. Where he saw risk, she offered patience. Still, doubt lingered. What happens to Earth? Lyris asked. If I stay. Earth gains a voice, Seraphel replied. And you gain a choice. The crisis came sooner than expected. A stellar anomaly, long predicted but never urgent, began destabilizing nearby systems. Lyran's models failed to account for cascading variables. Human-style improvisation became essential. Working together, Lyris and Seraphel devised a solution neither culture could have created alone. It required sacrifice, adaptation, and trust in uncertainty. When it worked, the council fell silent, not in fear, but in awe. Queen Meralis rose. My daughter, she said, you asked for him, and I did not understand. Now I see. You did not choose him for what he is. You chose him for what we are becoming. She turned to Lyris. Will you stay, not as possession, but as equal? Lyris thought of Earth, the skies, the noise, the fragile beauty of a world still finding its place. He thought of Lyran, suspended between perfection and paralysis. I will stay, he said, as long as the bridge goes both ways. Years later, historians would mark that moment as the beginning of the shared dawn, the era when humanity stepped into the greater cosmos not as subjects, but as collaborators. And when asked how it began, Seraphel would always smile and say the same words she once spoke to her mother, words that changed two worlds forever. I must have him, not to keep, but to walk beside. Ending in the end, there was no coronation marked by conquest, no dramatic surrender of one world to another. Instead, there was a quiet transformation. Lyran learned to embrace uncertainty. Earth learned it was not alone. Lyris never became a prince in title, nor did Seraphel become less a princess. What they became was something new, symbols of a future built on understanding rather than dominance. As stars shifted and civilizations watched, the universe took a careful step forward. And for the first time in countless ages, the cosmos did not merely endure. It grew.